fuck myself in.
So it is Thursday, November 4th, 2021 at 6:12 p.m. I slept great last night, which is a rarity, although a lot of the bad sleep is my own doing because Sam takes 2-month-old baby Archer. He's 3 months, but he was a month premature, each night, and I theoretically take him the next afternoon if she hasn't slept well. But usually she just wants to be part of the action, and so I do something stupid like give her coffee. And so she's had a couple of rough nights. So, yeah, and the washing machine's broken. And that's after there's puke and pee, and there's something else that went on the quilt cover. What else went on the quilt cover?
Oh, lemon juice. Which we thought it'd freshen up, but also add to the pea colour. So,
yeah, also some grease from those onion rings. So we finished Splash last night. And it's possible I don't have Sam's full attention since she's on her phone right now.
Sorry, I'm just playing the game as well as we're talking. Why can't I do that? Can I not do that? Is that a bad thing?
We'd started Splash several days ago because we mentioned Joe versus the Volcano in the first review a few days ago. And so Tom Hanks' kick, I guess, and it had come up in a couple of different bits and pieces. It's like, oh, Splash, because I saw that when I was a kid. You did too, didn't you?
Mm-hmm. I don't remember it now. Like as always happens, I go, oh yeah, let's watch that. I remember that, and then I've no recollection of it. It's a completely different movie. The same thing happened with Joe versus the Volcano. It happened with Beverly Hills Cop. It happened with Overboard. Yeah.
Overboard was good because Sam was having a really emotional time. It was early into pregnancy, and there's something specific that happened. You're having a particularly bad day. I think chemically there's something happening, but also your hormones are all over the place. And Sam was just like feeling just absolutely like terrified, wretched, the whole thing. And I was trying to figure out what to do. It's sort of the same way she tries to figure out what to do with Archer when Archer's having a bad day. And I put on Overboard, and I'd seen Overboard like a year or two earlier. And I thought, this is stupid. Like, the premise makes no sense. There's a bunch of leaps in logic. There's something very rapey about the whole thing. And yet I watched with Sam that night, and because of the place she was in, she was so emotional about everything. It's like, oh my God, he did this for her, and she did that for him. And I was like, oh my God, this is a fucking amazing movie. And I'm not 1,000,000% sure if we watch Overboard essentially a third time, where we'll be then, but we had a wonderful experience watching it, and that's the miracle of movies. But so Splash, anyway, we started it last week, and the first 20-25 minutes we really enjoyed. John Candy as Tom Hanks' shitty dickhead brother. Those guys had great chemistry. And if there's one thing I've picked up the last month or two is I've completely underestimated and underappreciated John Candy. The guy is a treasure.
John Candy is the business. Planes, Trains, Automobiles.
Yeah.
Home Alone. Uncle Buck.
Yeah.
Oh, there's just so many things, and he always just comes good, and he's wonderful.
Yeah.
He is what he is, and he knows what he is.
And it like his range is incredible. And I think he's one of those guys. And
remember Polka. Like, how much sweeter can you get?
Catherine O'Hara in Home Alone. Their scenes together in Home Alone were just out of this world.
Catherine O'Hara. I think she's absolutely tremendous.
She's one of the greats. And the two of them together, it's like, I did not appreciate. And I think a lot of the Second City groundlings, SNL alum, don't necessarily get the... Like, they do, but they don't. It's like, because they tend not to be Oscar movies. They tend to more be kind of John Hughes kind of coming-of-age movies or straight-up comedies. And the Oscars are for more kind of really serious, kind of tonally, kind of more flat movies. I don't mean that in a bad way, but super dramatic movies. Whereas, to me, handling emotional drama with levity gives so much more poignancy, because in real life... Like we talk about funeral laughter, in real life, at the worst moments, crazy, stupid shit always happens, and you wind up laughing at the wrong times. And, that's real life. And Sam watched Squid Game last week, and I watched the first few episodes with her, and then I watched the last couple with her. And something just wasn't clicking for me. And I was saying to her, like, part of it might be I've seen a bunch of these kind of modern dystopian modern apocalyptic multi-episodic kind of subscription channel shows, and I feel like I've just kind of seen it. And in the end, what I suddenly realized watching Joe versus Volcano is I turned to her and I said, Joe versus Volcano is about a guy who's going to commit suicide because he has a terminal illness. The premise is pretty close to as dark as much of the premise in Squid Game, but the big difference is that Joe versus Volcano had this really dramatic premise, but it played over it with playfulness and irony and all these things that for me Squid Game is just everything is so dark in Squid Game. I don't think it's a realistic portrayal of humanity, especially given the fact that you meet to some degree about 500 characters, and to a substantial degree, it must be 50. And the amount of humor and play and obtuseness is really missing from that for me. And that's why it wasn't just that it was dystopian, when it's certainly dystopian. And, I don't, life is tough enough without seeing people just try to savage each other for money. But I realize that my bigger issue in terms of it being something that would appeal to me is that even if you have a premise that's as dark as that and characters making the decisions that those characters make, there's going to be a lot of crazy, obtuse humor in there in real life. You can't avoid it because, people are crazy. So in that sense, I found it unrealistic. And if something's going to be that dark, I need there to be an tonally appropriate amount of lightness. Not that you do something slapstick in a serious film, because that would just break the tone of the film. But there is a type of humor that fits in every kind of film, So going to Splash, John Candy, geez, him and Tom Hanks. Of course, Tom Hanks is just one of the all-time greats, no question. And every, romantic, like in the 80s, he was really famous for all the romantic comedies when he's in his 20s and 30s. Obviously Splash is one of them. He did the buddy movie Turner and Hooch.
Oh, that's a wonderful movie as well.
Big. I mean,
I think. I hate that because then I watch something and I go, oh, that's wank. Why did I ever think that was good? And then I hold Blake responsible for ruining it.
The guy is just incredible, and he just lights up the screen. Whatever material you give him, Tom Hanks is just going to Tom Hanks it. He's just absolutely incredible. And so we watched the first 20-25 minutes, and we're having a really good time because it's, Tom Hanks is this kind of, is the phrase lovelorn, forlorn, lovesick. He wants to, he doesn't have a partner. He wants a wife and kids, but he's never fallen in love. That's kind of the idea. And
in Splash.
Yeah,
he's in the process of his living girlfriend, Victoria, is that her name? You never see her on screen, and she's on the phone to him, and she's telling him that she's moving out. And then he's like, well, what do you mean you're moving out, or what have you? And she was like, she must have said to him, you don't love me. And he responded, well, do you love me? And I assume what she said back was, yeah. And he went, oh, I see. So he's like, he thinks that he's dead inside, and that he can never love because he just couldn't, he couldn't commit to it, just didn't want it, just was something missing there for him. But, yeah. So
and I found it very relatable that, like I was married before, I've had relationships and all that before Sam, and...
Oh my God, really?
Okay, I might need to pause this and come back later. And...
Who was she?
I think it's very relatable that you're in a relationship and you think that it ticks all the boxes you're aware of that a relationship is supposed to tick, but somehow something's missing and you can't put your finger on it because you've never seen it. And I think Tom Hanks represents that. And the writing of the film is interesting to me because I think there's some things that are very clever and very human and very relatable, and then other things that are just really juvenile and completely like written by a 12-year-old who's never met another human being kind of thing. So I found the writing very uneven in the film. But one of the things that really worked is that, for me, is the idea that, Tom Hanks is confused by love. He's in a relationship, and of course Tom Hanks plays it great. And there's some good lines in there. That first act where he's like, like you're saying to John Candy, his jerk-ass brother, who's just a womanizer, and they're both in a business together, but Candy never shows up, and he considers going out drinking every night to be a form of trying to find new business partners, because, of course, he's just a lazeabout. And, so Hanks is talking to him about, what's wrong with me? Victoria was perfect. She's this, she's that, she's that. But why don't I love her? There's something wrong with me. I just want a wife, and I just want kids, and da 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 da. And so the chemistry between the two is fantastic, and the setup for the film is really, really great. And so the film opens at the start with this flashback to Tom Hanks falling off a ship, and under the water he sees a girl, and he's about 8 years old, and the girl's about 8 years old, and he gets pulled out of the water. And when he saw her, she's this beautiful girl, and he's all super happy. Then they pull him out of the water, and then they jump forward to where they're now in their late 20s, 30 years old. And so that's the first act setup. And everything changes when a woman saves him, because he's freaking out. He's having a crisis after his relationship breaks down, and he just instinctively wants to go, is it to Cape Cod?
Yeah, that's where he was when he was a kid.
And they make a point to the fact that he can't swim, and they do a comedic bit, which is nice, where he's on a boat, a single tiny rusty bathtub single engine boat, being brought across to the island that he wanted to go to just to get away from work. And he winds up getting capsized, doesn't he?
He winds up that the engine fails. And the big,
driver,
massive guy who was operating the boat just jumps out of the thing and goes, I'll swim the couple of miles back to shore. It's not that far, and I'll bring back the little boat. That was funny. And you're looking at the boat, and it's the size of a thimble. Yeah. It's like something out of a storybook. So he's just there. Then he tries to get the boat going, to which Blake and I, before it even kicked off, like when he started pulling on the motor, like, he's going to do that, and then just it'll move, and he's going to get capsized out of the boat. Yeah. Which is exactly what happens. And then he gets hit in the head, and he's unconscious, yada, 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 which is the same kind of thing that happened when he was small. Yeah. So it's a repeat of that. But he gets miraculously saved, brought to shore, and I think, do we see her at that moment? Do we see Daryl Hannah's? Yeah. Okay, so we see her. He's brought to shore. Yeah, he sees her there. He tries to thank her, but she runs away. And basically, she then shows up shortly thereafter, walking naked onto... We see her swim to an underwater sea wreck and look up a map. This is obtuse. And I'm just going to mention right now, because I won't remember them all, Hanks can't swim, but at the end of the film, he can swim. And he's never in water in between. Like a week later, he can swim. So there's a ton of things that don't make any sense in this film. Another one, I'm leaping around here, but we haven't even really started to run through it, is this mermaid girl, which is just the whole gimmick of it, Splash, who saved his life, and she was the same kid who saw him when they was 8 years old. She arrives in New York City, and she winds up buying a bunch of clothes, and they're given to her in boxes, and she brings them back to the apartment. And then 20 minutes later in the film, she doesn't know what a box is. They're doing, there's a cute thing that they're doing a literal fish out of water story, because that's what they call it when you take a character and you move them from their natural surroundings to a new surrounding. And that's a standard trope everywhere. Joe vs. the Volcano has that. Beverly Hills Cop, Eddie Murphy going to Beverly Hills. You see it in possibly most films, because that's kind of it's a very easy premise for a story. You take a character from the situation they know, and you put them in a situation they don't know. There's a lot of Joseph Campbell's hero's journey in that, where you venture out to a new place, and that incites a lot of incidents. If you weren't going or doing something new, how could there possibly be a film? Whether it's emotional or physical or whatever the case is, you have to be going somewhere new, and that's what creates the tension. Anyway, trying to get back on track. So she shows up with his wallet, because he had lost his wallet when he capsized from the thimble boat. And she gets picked up by the police because she just walks naked on shore. Yeah, up to the Statue of Liberty. Apparently there's mermaids, and for the first time one decided to walk on shore and doesn't even run away when people start taking photos and trying to arrest her. She just hangs out. And so Hanks gets a call, and he comes down to the police station, and what he finds is this naked, mute girl. And if this happened in real life,
What would you think if you get called to the police station and there's a person of the opposite gender with no English and no clothes sitting there with your wallet?
That you don't know.
That you don't know. What would you think? I think sex trafficking. That's what or grifting. One or the other.
A grift. I'd certainly think it was a grift.
So the way Tom
If it was me, I'd be grifting.
And then we fell in love. And so Tom Hanks' reaction to this, she kisses him when she meets him, and he's a 30-year-old man living in New York City, and there isn't a bone of suspicion about this for him.
Yeah, and he's like fairly well off and all, like, so it's...
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. His relationship has just ended, and he doesn't remember her. Like, he doesn't seem to know that... Like, do we think that he remembers her saving him or not? I don't get the impression that he does.
Yeah, I didn't get the impression... Yeah, they never gave the impression that he knows that she saved him from the water, because she was in the distance when he was trying to thank her and she ran away.
Yeah, like, it'd be understandable, like, if he was like, man, she saved my life, that's how she has my wallet. And, of course, yeah, Jesus will help her. Like, I could see that.
That's not the way the movie presented it.
That's not the way the movie kind of presents it. So.
Yeah. So his reaction to finding this mute, naked girl with his wallet in the police station...
is to bring her home and fuck her.
Yeah, he brings her home and he sleeps with her. And incongruency, like number 17, is a few scenes later, he very bashfully asks her if she'd like to spend the night with him. He's had sex with her multiple times. And so when he first meets her with his wallet... He has sex with her multiple times, then leaves her in his apartment to go to work after it's been established that she can't speak English and she doesn't even know how to use household appliances, which is like, you are asking to burn down your apartment building and or have everything cased and stolen.
How did she know how to have a bath?
It was just a completely, and this is the problem in the second act of the film, is that the second act is them falling in love. And this goes to the Manic Pixie Dream Girl thing. This girl, at this point, this is where the movie really falls apart for me, and this is why we stopped it for a week. We finished it out of completionism, and by the end, there are likable qualities about it again. The beginning and the end, there's fun, likable qualities, but you can't take it seriously because there's too many things that just don't make sense. And you accept that in movies, a lot of things are heightened reality. There's certain leaps of logic and all that you absolutely take, and I love to take. And I like, sort of fantasy-themed movies in various ways, so I don't think I'm a movie snob that's sitting there with a protractor trying to measure everything. But his reactions to her in the second act of the film just make no human sense. Like, not within 1,000 feet of any kind of logic is there. Her character has no agency, and I hate to sound like a snob that way, but she has no identity. She has no background. We have no idea. Are there multiple mermaids? Is there a mermaid city? He asks her, how long are you in town for? Apparently she learns how to speak English from watching TV for a few hours, which, whatever. Like, she's like a savant, but she's also dumb as a doornail. So I don't know. So let's just accept that she learns how to speak perfect English from watching TV for a few hours.
She's autistic.
Maybe that's what it is. Yeah, those girls are extremely intelligent. So she learns how to speak English. We just accept she learns how to speak English, and it's not the biggest problem. So let's just ignore that. She learns how to speak English from watching television. She says, how long are you in town for? And she says 6 days. There is no explanation as to why it's a week that she's in town. There's not as an audience. There's no, she won't be able to become a fish again because when she's on land, she has legs, and when she's in the water, she has a tail. Incongruency number 478. There's a scene in the movie where it starts to lash down rain and they're having a fight, so she runs away. She doesn't turn into a fish, even though she's soaking. A few scenes later, Eugene Levy, who's a sub-character who's trying to prove that there's mermaids. He's, an aquarian scientist. Marine biologist, better phrase for that. Hello, Archer. He throws 2 buckets of water on her because he wants to prove that she's a mermaid, and she does turn into a fish. Okay, look at this baby for a second. In theory, Sam has subdued the mini beast for the moment. So the continuity is all over the place, and the rules of the universe are never established, including when she's in Tom Hanks' apartment. She runs herself a bath and pours in salt into it, and so she turns into a mermaid. And so you're sitting there thinking to yourself, I mean, even if you wrote the story, the explanation for yourself that, okay, if she doesn't get her tail for 7 days, she can never get her tail again, and she needs to go back to the sea. Why? We don't know. Because as best we can tell, she's an orphan. As best we can tell, she's some sort of scientific experiment by Tony Stark's dad, and she's the only one of a kind because they do nothing. Like, you never see any other person from her community. There isn't a single verbal reference. You're sitting there going, where is she from? Why is she here? What is her background? Why is her 7 days? But it's like she's a completely underdeveloped character. It's like the writers of the film were like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And it doesn't work for me because she's throwing out rules, and they throw out rules that are inconsistently applied. And so the tension just isn't there because they don't explain what the rules are and what the consequences are.
There's a few, like, she put salt water into the bath, and that gives you the impression that that was necessary. And
for her to get her tail.
To get her tail.
Yeah.
Then he sprays water on her.
Eugene Levy's marine biologist character.
Like, that scene was horrific for me. You could smell the fear and how disoriented she was, and just terror. It was awful. And they all clamour around her. They pick her up and throw her into a car. It's like, it's absolutely horrific, and there's no one there to kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Advocate for her.
Mm-hmm.
And Tom Hanks is just in shock, and he just leaves her. She's screaming for him, and he just, obviously he doesn't know what to do. He's just in shock. Fair enough, she turned into a fish. But like, it was just so dark and sad, and that was really impacting, I think. But it made me forget all those little inconsistencies. That's when it suddenly turned around and started being good again.
Yeah, this is the end of the second act, and it's where proper drama kind of kicks in.
And it's harrowing. And like, there's some funny bits where they leave Tom Hanks to get him, and he's just left in a fish tank for 12 hours to see if he turns into a fish
as well. Yeah.
And it doesn't, but they really are treating her just like she's a specimen. That's the end of it.
Yeah.
And Eugene Levy even seems to realise that, and is like, hang on, what are you going to do? And it turns out they intend to dissect her. That's what they want to do, the scientists.
Yeah.
But John Candy then, like, in the interim, Tom Hanks has kind of gone back, and he's ranting and raving. They're calling him a fish man in the paper, and John Candy's making light, and he's like, why does all these horrible things happen to me? Oh, poor me, woe is me, I have the worst life. And then John Candy kind of snaps at him, and now it should have went on.
Yeah,
it should have been a 5 or 6 minute scene.
I'll interject it to the start of the movie. In that same office, Tom Hanks is bemoaning the fact that he can't find love and he doesn't understand love. And so they're back in the same office in the third act after it's been revealed that she's a fish, and that freaks him out, and he distances himself from her, which is good drama. You know, it's a failure on his part, and it's a nice metaphor for the idea, bless you, of you find someone you love, bless you, and because you're unwilling to accept their idiosyncrasies, you cost yourself that. And you go, oh, I almost had the right relationship, but she's this, but she's that. About things that don't necessarily matter.
It's not really, I almost had the right relationship, but she's Jewish, or like she's Catholic, or she's fucking, I don't know, into techno music. She is a fish. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but it goes to show that, like, if you love somebody, and this is, we're kind of jumping around here, but that's what we do. Like, in the second act, the big problem is that they never had one serious conversation. Like, he says, where are you from? She's like, out of town. Okay. And they move on. She's pretty, and he likes fucking her. That's the basis of their entire relationship.
Hey.
Too soon? Too close to the bone? Hi, Archer. But that's the big problem with the second act, is that we're supposed to believe that they've really fallen in love. But her character is there to love him unconditionally, even though he's really bad to her a few times.
There was seem like they busting down the door because she wants some privacy in the bathroom.
The biggest one is when she's in the bathtub. When she's in the bathtub, like one of the first nights she's staying with him, and she puts in the salt water. She's having a bath. He wakes up, he comes down, he knocks on the bathroom door, and he says, "Hey, are you okay?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'm just having a bath." And he says, "Can I come in?" And she's like, "No, just leave me here a while." And this looks particularly bad post to me too, but anytime it would, he breaks down the door because she won't let him in while she's having a bath. It's like human beings need privacy. There was like a psycho creepy.
As I said, she could have just been lying because she was having a poo.
Yeah.
And didn't want to say it. Like, why shouldn't she be able to privacy in the bathroom?
Yeah, it's like he says, "Are you okay?" And she says yes. And instead of kind of going, "Okay, you want some pancakes?" He breaks down the bathroom door because she can't have any privacy. So her character is treated as an object throughout the entire film by everybody, including the guy who's supposed to be the love interest that we like. And the fact that Tom Hanks' character has that weakness of character that when he finds out that she's a fish, and now granted, people be freaked out. Like if you wound up at the tail, I'd be like, holy shit. But if
I think you'd be into it.
if there's love there, let's not talk about this. If there's
Again.
If there's love there, I have a very strange condition. If like love is about connecting with somebody, obviously on an emotional level, and that's why, whoop, baby.
What?
What?
You kept me away, like with all your tomfoolery. Yeah, and now you're laughing at me. Get bent.
Like, I at the risk of being preachy, I mean, love is something beyond, oh my God, she's young and has supple skin and she likes to fuck me, you know? And so their relationship is so absolutely thin that at the end of the film, he has a huge problem reconciling this, which is good because it gives him an arc. It gives him, and to bring it back around to the scene that Sam was talking about, we can see that his brother is the John Candy jerk-ass character who's very funny, and the comedy scenes between the two are very funny, and seeing the difference between the two. And in the third act, he winds up, and this is what Sam's trying to talk about, like we've heard all sorts of wonderful things about the brother who still to this day throws change on the ground so he can go pretending to collect it and look up girls' skirts at 30 years old. So that's the kind of juvenile thing we're talking about. It was said about him that he once brought a date to his own wedding. So the fact that in the third act we get, and it was all too brief and it could have gone so much deeper, but this is the kind of film we're talking about, when Tom Hanks is doing the woe is me, I almost had love, and she turns out to be a fish and life is against me thing. John Candy gets an all too brief monologue to set him in line and go, what you had with her for a couple of days is more than I've ever had, more than most people ever have. You think people fall in love every day. It doesn't happen that way. Get the fuck over yourself. And it could have been a deeper and broader speech. I wish it was, because we could smell it brewing, because John Candy is a great dramatic actor. And it's something that, you know, a lot of comedic actors have great dramatic chops that you just don't remember or realize. And you see them come out so naturalistically and you're like, holy crap, this is amazing. So yeah, the second act makes no sense. They break their own rules. They don't even tell you what the rules are, but the ones that you infer are broken. The Madison character is completely all over the place in terms of consistency. She's super smart, but super ignorant at the same time, and not in ways that are endearing. The fact that Tom Hanks is smitten with her and wants to marry her, despite the fact that he knows nothing about how does she make money, where's she from, where's her family, any of this stuff doesn't ring true, and it doesn't seem sweet. It makes Hanks look like an absolute idiot. It makes him look stupid. And so the second act is just a real mess. And again, the way that she's mistreated, especially by him, they have a fight at another point, and he starts chasing her down the street in ice skates, which would remind you of the T-1000 in Terminator 2 chasing John Connor. Like, he's really possessive and really unreasonable in a way that is not cute. And it's played for laughs in the film, but it's cringy and it's uncomfortable, like breaking down the bathroom door when she said she's fine. She just wanted some time to herself. They obviously wrote that with the thought of like, oh my God, we're going to build some drama that he might see her tail, but that they didn't think through. What does it look like when a guy tries to break down a door to get to a girl who's saying, please don't come in? What does that mean when he has no reason to believe she's doing anything wrong to herself or anybody else? The third act then starts to redeem the thing, because we saw the thing for completionism, but it does start to redeem it, even though it's silly and stupid and slapstick. If you don't take it seriously, and you can't, because they don't think it through enough. It's not deep enough on enough levels. They do hit those questions of, if you find something you love, are you adaptable enough to appreciate the fact that it didn't necessarily come in the form that you anticipated? You know, my life relates to that. I've wound up in my life here at almost 41 I always wanted the family and I wanted kids and wanted to play music. And I now have that and I love what I'm doing with it. But it is completely different to the way I thought it was going to happen when I was 20 years old. But thankfully, my brain has done enough work to turn around and go, oh, this is the thing you were looking for. You just didn't know what it looked like yet and adapt to it. And so that aspect is very sweet. The fact that you have the Tom Hanks character do that and learn, oh, hang on a second, I love this person. If she gets a tail when she gets wet, who gives a fuck because I love her? Why does he love her? I have no idea, because they have nothing in common. They never have a conversation about anything meaningful. They have no idea what each other's politics are. They like sports. They like watching movies together. Yeah, like you have no, like there's no actual crossover. There's no real relationship there, which is one of the big failings of the film, and takes away the potential for there to be a real emotional bond between the two, because there isn't.
Wait, when he goes down to live under the water with her and we see the city at the end?
At the very, 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 very end of the film, during the credits, we see in one shot an underwater city.
Yeah, I think it's all lit up like. But
okay.
What I would say is like, it broke TVs. The frequency with which she tried to tell him her name.
Right. They did a joke where he asked her what her name is and she kind of shrieks, and so I guess it's supposed to be like a sonar dolphin kind of sound.
So then he goes down and he lives down underwater. He doesn't get a tail. And this is where we find out he can suddenly swim. But he doesn't get a tail but can breathe underwater. And she has her tail, so he's not going to be able to keep up with her and shit. Do you know what I mean? He'll probably have to put reins on her or something. Right, anyway. So what now I have an image of Tom Hanks, like, kind of literally jockeying a mermaid under the sea. But, like,
well,
when he...
That's a sequel for a different channel.
And, sorry... Yeah, like there's even the bestiality
very
question.
Strange.
There is the bestiality question.
I have
like,
a very strange condition.
Touched on that. Yeah, Troy McClure.
Yeah.
So... Like, he goes down there, and whereas to assume then that, like, there must be other mer people.
Yeah.
Merman, Pop, merman.
At that point. That's the first time there's ever alluded to it. Ever.
Any of them. Yeah. And then, so he goes down there, he can't speak their language, and they can't speak hers, or his, because she learned it off the telly.
Mm-hmm.
And is she the first person to go up above?
Apparently.
To do that. So when he comes down, are they not going to be like screaming her name at her, like, ah! Which is like whatever it is,
right? And
then like, what the fuck? Who's this? Stranger danger! Get him out of here! What are they hanging out of his bum? Like, what's happening?
It raises.
What are them noises?
There's ways to do this. I think this basic story, but they needed to give her some kind of backdrop. Like they gave like her existence, and this is the Manic Pixie Dream Girl bit. Her whole existence is what serves Tom Hanks' story. And that's all that she is. They literally don't go one sentence beyond what they require her to be for him. And that's the definition. She has no agency. She loves him unconditionally and completely from the moment she meets him in the film through to the end of the film, despite the fact that he mistreats her. And she never gives any indicator, any hesitation about how she feels about him. Even at the end, after he's rejected her and abandoned her and let the scientists take her, and she's been objectified and she's stuck in a tank, and she has people in coats looking at her naked and prodding her. When he shows up, she's like, oh my God, I'm so glad to see you. He rejects her again. And then he gets the pep talk from his brother saying, you're being a friggin' idiot. And then at the very end of the film, when he finally gets his act together and he shows up to actually rescue her, then she still loves him. Despite the fact that he's abandoned her, he's rejected her, he's broken down the door on her, he's really mistreated her. And
I stopped talking to you because you left an alarm on longer than you should have. So, like, I don't know. She's not real.
Yeah, and the fact that she is so not real. It's not that, like, the film doesn't have to be about her per se, but she's not even, like, she's on screen a lot, but she's not even a lead character. The sub-characters have more agency. Like, they have, it's a great cast. It's, Tom Hanks, John Candy, Daryl Hannah does just fine in her role. Eugene Levy is a treasure. I've really come to appreciate him in the later years. So he's playing that support character who we meet like a baby. Sorry, that was Freudian. Or something. Come on, baby.
Oh man, baby.
That he's kind of an embarrassment marine biologist, and he's trying to prove that there's new life under the water. And so, we have this subplot where he finally catches up and turns her into a fish. And then he does a babyface turn, as does John Candy, where they both, recognize, like John Candy shows some class by telling Tom Hanks he has to go fix this thing, and he helps him do it. And the Eugene Levy character sees how badly she's being treated and how human she is, and he realizes, I've made a terrible mistake.
How do they find each other?
Yeah, again, this is continuity or, scripting thing number 471. When Tom Hanks' character, when Eugene Levy's character, the marine biologist, wants to find her and throw water on her to prove that she's a mermaid, he just catches up with them in the middle of the street. He just does. And then he knows where they live, and he just does. There's no explanation. It's New York City. It's one of the biggest, most densely populated cities in the world, and there's no through line as to, he just teleports like Dark Knight Rises to wherever he needs to be for the story to continue. And conversely, when Tom Hanks is trying to track down Eugene Levy's character after he has revealed her and she has been taken away, Tom Hanks shows up at a dentist's office and breaks into not just a dentist's office, but the exact room that has dental surgery happening in, and confronts him with no explanation as to him knowing who he is and how he got to this dental surgery on this day for this particular procedure. So the amount of convenience in the film, convenience is too small a word, but just contrivance where they just don't bother to explain or justify things, it's too much. And it tonally, it doesn't work. And here's the issue, is that for me, is that they do deal with serious themes. They deal with the theme of what is love.
He even makes the comment to say, what is it? Are you married? Did you used to be a man? I don't care. Now, that was lovely.
When Tom Hanks is trying to figure out from Daryl Hannah.
Before he finds out she's a fish. But, when he says that was a real kind of, that stood up well. That's really, really lovely.
Yeah.
And you can feel that he means it until he finds out what the thing is. Now, to be fair, she is a fish. He assumed she was human.
I'm not being funny, but I think for most people it'd be more difficult to deal with the cross-gender thing than I get a tail when I'm wet. I think they're in the same bracket. So he's a bit of a hypocrite. She's a female fish.
I don't know.
It depends on how you feel about seafood.
Well, I don't think it's... Well, maybe it is. I don't know, You see, now I'm thinking of a shark, and then I'm going, if you have a shark and it's, a female shark, would I be alright with that if, I really clicked with it? And I'm going, I don't know, a female shark seems like to be quite butch. So, I've probably gone down a different rabbit hole.
Are you thinking about lesbianism?
Yeah. I don't know why.
Dolphins have blowholes. So the third act of the film... The third act of the film is like a wacky chase, as they do it in the third act of most cliched films, where Eugene Levy sees the error of his ways, John Candy makes good by helping true love, which he's never found, come through, and Tom Hanks gets over his prejudice, and the three of them conspire a stupid plot, but it's funny because the actors are fucking great, and there's some funny lines, there are funny lines in the film, and so they bust her out and they get her to the sea, and in the end, and she says to him on the dock as the FBI, the helicopters, the military all converging on them, she says to him, "You can come with me. Do you remember when you were 8?" He's like, "Oh my God, that was you. And you fell into the water and you were okay. You can come with me." He says, "That's great. I'll come back at Christmas." And she says, "No, you can never come back." Why? No idea. Why could she come out of the water for 7 days when she's 30 years old? What are the rules of this universe, And again, they don't have to go through them with a fine-tooth comb. We just need a basic understanding of what the rules are. As I say about superhero movies, any movie that requires rules that are outside the norm of day-to-day reality of the world that we know, if there's rules about it, I can only be here for 7 days. If you come with me, you can never come back. You just have to explain why. It can be 2 lines, but just give us why is this a rule in this universe? And they never do that, which is frustrating. So at the end of the film, with everybody converging, Tom Hanks, she goes to swim away, and everybody, the military is chasing her. And then Tom Hanks finally goes, "Screw it! I'm going to live with the fish for the rest of my life," which is, great. And then he jumps into the water, and he's swimming away like Michael Phelps on weed. He's just like boom, and then all of a sudden they cut from him swimming incredibly competently to him unconscious, falling through the water.
Oh yeah.
In one shot with no transition between the two. Just nonsensical. Completely nonsensical. And the thing finishes with the two of them just swimming away together.
No, they pull out, there's divers, and then they pull out their breathing apparatus because she kisses him under the water, then suddenly he can breathe under the water. And that's it. That's how life is then.
Yeah. But I mean, he could breathe under the water when they were 8 and they fell overboard, and she hadn't kissed him that time. So, I was just skipping that because it just didn't seem germane. But, and so then it finishes, and that's the end of the movie. And so it's kind of like you get a setup, you get great actors, you get some good characters that have legitimate arcs. I mean, the idea of that sub-character, and he says it himself, the Eugene Levy character, he says, when he's in the dentist office, he's confronted by Hanks, he says, "I just needed to prove to people I wasn't crazy. I didn't even consider how that would impact you or her."
That was nice.
It
was real honest.
Yeah, and there's a real character thing there, and he does a real baby face where someone's so hell-bent on proving themselves and getting their own thing, and then suddenly it dawns on them, holy Christ, how does this affect other people? There's something meaty there to be done. John Candy's character being such a well-played, dickhead, self-involved guy, and then when Tom Hanks finds love and then loses love. And again, the love sucks. I mean, his relationship with Daryl Hannah is paper thin. And that's the big problem in the center of the film. They're not in love. They literally swim under the water. They might get divorced a day later because they haven't had a single serious conversation the entire film. There's nothing that makes you go, these guys are really suited together, except for the fact that, and he has terrible judgment in women, clearly terrible judgment. But she's hot, and she likes to bang, so he's in love with her. That's what the story is. And so if they had explained that, if the second act was consistent and good, and they didn't just go for a ton of cheap laughs about how she doesn't understand what music is, and she doesn't understand what television is, and she sees someone get shot on Bonanza, and she thinks she died for real, and they go for all these cheap laughs, and the film is a comedy, but with the serious themes they have, and the character arcs that they have, and they have 3 or 4 character arcs that would work well, but they just undermine them by having so much inconsistency and so much stuff that doesn't work in there. So overall, to me, it's a real mixed bag with a lot of fun moments, but more than anything else, it pointed to a film that could have been much, much better than what it was.
Yeah, agreed.